Picture two neighbors. Same street, same subdivision, same year they both turned 40. Mark drives a newer car. Nice watch. Takes his family to Florida every summer. His kids are in travel sports leagues, the kind where the tournament fees alone run a few $1,000s a year. From the outside, Mark looks like the definition of financial success. David drives a 6-year-old sedan, doesn't wear a watch. His family vacations involve a tent and a national park pass. His neighbors quietly assumed he was struggling. Fast forward 15 years. Mark is 55, sitting across from an HR manager, nodding slowly as she explains the severance package. The mortgage has 11 years left. His retirement account has $190,000 in it. He'll need to find another job. Not because he wants to, but because the math leaves him no choice. He's not broke. He's just trapped. And at 55, trapped feels worse than broke. David retires at 58, not with a mansion, not with a yacht. But he wakes up on a Tuesday in October and realizes he never has to ask anyone for permission to do anything again. His net worth crossed $1.2 million, sometime in his early 50s. He barely noticed when it happened. Same neighborhood. Same income bracket when they were 40. Completely different lives at 55. This is not a story about income. It is not a story about luck. This isn't about how much money you make in your 40s. It's about the invisible decisions you make, or don't make, that compound silently for the next 15 years, and then announce themselves all at once. Most people treat their 40s like a financial plateau. Like the hard part is over. Like they've arrived somewhere. But the truth is this. Your 40s are not a plateau. They are the steepest part of the climb. And most people spend them looking at their phones. I'm going to show you the rules that separate the people who quietly build wealth in their 40s from the people who silently unravel it. These aren't motivational principles. They're mechanical realities. The kind that don't care about your intentions. The kind that operate whether you understand them or not. Your 40s are the highest leverage decade you will ever have. And most people spend them upgrading their lifestyle instead. Here is something the financial industry rarely says clearly. The money you invest in your early 40s has roughly 20 to 25 years to compound before a typical retirement. That is the sweet spot. Not your 20s, when you had time but no money. Not your 50s, when you may have money but the window is closing. Your 40s, right now. This is the window. A $30,000 lump sum invested at 40, left alone at a 7% average annual return, becomes roughly $160,000 by 65. That same $30,000 invested at 50 becomes about $59,000. Same money, same return. A 20-year difference in outcome just because of when you acted. But here's what most people miss. They know this math abstractly, and they still don't act on it. Because the 40s also come with the most socially acceptable reasons to spend. Bigger house, better schools, kids' activities, aging parents. The lifestyle upgrades feel earned. And they are. You worked for them. But every dollar that goes into a bigger mortgage instead of a brokerage account is a dollar that will never have those 20 years to work for you. The hidden consequence isn't poverty. It's dependency. It's being 57 and needing every paycheck. Lifestyle inflation in your 40s is the most dangerous financial force you will ever face because it feels like success. Nobody talks about this with the seriousness it deserves. Lifestyle inflation in your 20s is relatively harmless because the amounts are small. Lifestyle inflation in your 60s is irrelevant because the habits are mostly set. But lifestyle inflation in your 40s? That is where fortunes are quietly dismantled. You get a raise. The car gets upgraded. You get a bonus. The kitchen gets renovated. The income grows, and somehow, so does the anxiety, because the spending has grown to perfectly absorb every increase. This is called the hedonic treadmill, and your 40s are when it runs fastest. A household earning $130,000 at 40 and spending $128,000 is in a far more dangerous position than a household earning $90,000 and spending $70,000. The numbers look different, but the wealth trajectories are not even close. It gets worse. The lifestyle upgrade locks in fixed costs, a bigger mortgage, a longer car payment, a private school tuition. These aren't one-time splurges. They are structural commitments that restrict every financial decision for the next decade. You can cut a vacation. You can't easily cut a mortgage. Rule 3. The retirement number you have in your head is probably wrong. And the gap between your assumption and reality is where financial security disappears. Most people in their 40s have a vague sense of their retirement number. They've heard $1 million so many times it became the default. But here's the mechanical reality. $1 million, withdrawn at the standard 4% safe withdrawal rate, generates $40,000 per year, before taxes. Is that the retirement you're picturing? The actual number for a comfortable retirement, not lavish comfortable, for a couple in a moderate cost of living area, is typically closer to $1.8 to $2.2 million. And that number assumes Social Security supplements it, and that healthcare costs don't spike in your early retirement years. The psychological danger here is what researchers call optimism bias. We naturally assume our future will look slightly better than the math suggests. We assume we'll spend less than we do. We assume markets will cooperate. We assume health will hold. When you build a retirement plan on a number that's 40% too low, you don't discover the shortfall at 40. You discover it at 61, when it's very difficult to fix. Know your actual number. Then double-check it. Rule 4. Your biggest financial enemy in your 40s isn't debt. It's the cost of looking financially healthy. There is an enormous amount of money spent every year on the appearance of being okay. The upgraded car lease at 43 because the old one was looking dated. The kitchen renovation that adds resale value but mostly just feels better when people come over. The annual family photo that ends up on a card sent to people you see twice a year. Nobody talks about the social cost of financial discipline, but it is real. In your 40s, your peer group is mostly in their peak earning and peak spending years simultaneously. The social environment normalizes a level of consumption that would genuinely surprise most people if they saw it on a spreadsheet. David, the neighbor from the opening, described it this way. He said he spent 3 years in his early 40s feeling vaguely embarrassed at dinner parties, like he was behind. Like his peers had figured something out that he hadn't. It wasn't until his late 40s that he realized they were all performing the same thing for each other. Most of them were one bad quarter at work, away from a very uncomfortable conversation with their spouse about the mortgage. The hidden cost of social performance is not just money. It's the mental energy of maintaining a financial image. That energy could be building something real. Rule 5. The career plateau hits in your 40s, and almost nobody prepares for it. For most people, income growth is fastest in their 20s and 30s. By the mid-40s, salary growth tends to slow significantly. You've reached a senior level. The next step requires a title that may not have an opening, or demands a political game many people aren't willing to play. And the market's appetite for your skills, particularly in fast-moving industries, begins a subtle but real decline. This isn't pessimism. It's actuarial reality, and it means something specific. If you were planning to save more when I make more, that window is likely shorter than you think. The people who retire comfortably from this decade don't wait for a future income event to save seriously. They treat their current income as the income. They optimize around it. They are not waiting. I'm not done yet. Because there's a second layer to this. The career plateau also brings an identity pressure. The people who define themselves through professional ambition find their 40s disorienting when the climb slows. That disorientation often expresses itself financially, in spending that fills the space that ambition used to occupy. Rule 6. Children are a financial variable that almost nobody accounts for honestly. This is not an argument about whether to have children or how to raise them. It is an accounting observation. The cost of raising a child in a middle-class American household to age 18 is estimated by the USDA at roughly $310,000. That number does not include college. The relevant point is not the total. It's the timing. Those costs peak precisely when your wealth-building window is most critical, ages 40 to 55. And the spending often goes unexamined because it is framed as love rather than finance. The parents who navigate this successfully are not the ones who spend less on their kids. They're the ones who are honest about the trade-offs. They know that the travel baseball league at $8,000 per year for 5 years is a $40,000 decision. They make it consciously, not accidentally. The financial harm isn't generosity. It's unconscious spending dressed as generosity. Rule 7. Your investment allocation in your 40s is probably too conservative. And you're losing millions of dollars in future wealth because of a feeling. There is a well-documented behavioral pattern where people shift their investment portfolios toward bonds and safer assets as they enter their 40s. It feels prudent. It feels grown up. It feels like the kind of thing a responsible person with a family does. But here's what it actually is. It is a multi-decade cost with a psychological benefit. If you are 42 and your retirement timeline is 23 years, you have a longer investment horizon than most 30-year-olds think about. A portfolio that is 50% bonds at 42 is likely to underperform a more equity-heavy portfolio by a margin that, compounded over 2 decades, can represent hundreds of thousands of dollars. The psychological driver is loss aversion. The well-researched human tendency to feel the pain of a loss roughly twice as intensely as the pleasure of an equivalent gain. So a 20% market correction feels catastrophic, even when it is, historically, routine. And people make permanent decisions based on temporary feelings. The 40s are not the time to pull back from growth. They are the time to stay in the game and let compounding do its quiet work. Rule 8. Healthcare costs will arrive before you expect them. And they will arrive large. Most people's mental model of retirement healthcare involves Medicare at 65 and a small monthly premium. The actual picture is substantially different. The average couple retiring at 65 will spend an estimated $315,000 on healthcare costs throughout retirement, according to Fidelity's annual estimates. That number does not include long-term care, and if you retire early, at 58 or 60, you face a gap of several years where you are responsible for your own private insurance premiums. In the United States, those premiums for a couple in their early 60s can run $1,500 to $2,500 per month. Nobody who is 43 is emotionally prepared to absorb that number. But the people who retire comfortably planned for it anyway. They built healthcare into the model. They didn't assume it. Rule 9. Automating wealth is not a productivity hack. In your 40s, it is the single most important structural decision you can make. There is a reason every serious conversation about personal finance eventually arrives at automation. It is not because it is clever. It is because willpower is not a financial strategy. The people who save consistently in their 40s are not more disciplined than the people who don't. They are more automated. The money moves before they can evaluate whether this month is a good month to move it. It goes to the retirement account, the brokerage, the high-yield savings, before it ever arrives in the checking account, where it can become a kitchen renovation or a plane ticket or a very reasonable-sounding justification for delay. The psychological principle at work here is called present bias. We are neurologically wired to overweight immediate rewards relative to future ones. Automation is the engineering solution to a cognitive flaw. It removes the decision from the equation. And in your 40s, when the decisions come with enormous social and emotional context, removing them is worth more than almost any other financial move you can make. Rule 10. The people who retire free didn't find a secret investment. They made a decision in their 40s to treat their future self as a current obligation. This is the quiet truth beneath everything else. It is not a particular asset class. It is not a real estate strategy or a stock-picking method. It is a fundamental reorientation of who you are spending for. Most people in their 40s are spending for their present self and their present family. The future self is vague. He is older and hopefully fine. She will figure something out. There is a psychological distance to the future that makes it feel unreal. And we discount unreal things heavily. The people who build wealth through their 40s have made the future self as real as the present one. They have run the numbers. They know what $2 million in a retirement account actually looks like in monthly income. They know what the alternative looks like too. And they have made that future person a named, known stakeholder in every financial decision they make today. Mark and David lived on the same street, drove similar cars when they were 40, and worried about similar things. Mortgages, kids, aging parents, whether they were keeping up. The difference was not dramatic. It was not a windfall for David or a catastrophe for Mark. It was a series of small, invisible decisions made repeatedly over 15 years. David automated his savings the year he turned 41. He never upgraded his car because of how it looked. He knew his retirement number, the real one. He invested aggressively because he understood his timeline. He made his future self a present obligation. Mark made reasonable decisions. Each one individually defensible. Together, they added up to dependency. The thing about your 40s is that nothing about them announces their importance. There is no alarm. No financial advisor knocks on your door at 43 and says, "This decade is the one." Life keeps arriving. The kids, the career, the mortgage, the dinners with friends who seem to be doing well. It all feels like the main event. But the main event is happening in the background. Quietly, mathematically. Every month that passes is a month of compounding that you either captured or didn't. You don't get a warning. You just get the outcome.